G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video. And recently we had the GT7 State of Play, so new cars, new features, new game modes, all revealed. You can watch my reaction to it here. But to commemorate the start of GT7, in Gran Turismo Sport there is a new online championship called the Road to GT7, and that's what we've done today. But make sure to get yourself subscribed for all brand new Gran Turismo 7 content. But for now, let's get on with the road to Gran Turismo 7. And this is where we begin, the entry lobby screen of the first round. Oh, it's good to be back. Back in Oceania, top split, but there is an imposter among us. Who's this R4M smoke show? We're going to have to show him who's boss, definitely. But first of all, we have to go out for qualifying here. You can see I'm driving the Ford GT40. From 1966, we drove this one at the Nürburgring race in a Nations Cup a while ago. There's everyone leaving the pits, and I'm looking out for the distinct guys. So formerly the PX7 guys, slam down that throttle, and we're out of the pits the moment we see them. But I wasn't really quite prepared for it, to be honest, because, yeah, I'm absolutely nowhere near them, but that was my thought pattern at the time. See if we can grab some slipstream off some quick guys. Not quite gonna happen. So Twitchy, Amazing Hour, and Tez, they've all migrated over to distinct. Brand new year for a brand new team, so I wish them a long and successful partnership with their new team. But this is the qualifying session now. You can see we're at Tokyo Expressway South Inner Loop. I think it's the Inner Loop. It appears to be the Inner Loop to me. This was one thing I've never been able to sort out in my mind, is working out which ones are the inners and which one are the outers. I know sort of the east, centre, south, that, but I don't know inner or outer. I think this is inner. But anyway, coming into turn one, we're going to be looking for the 100 metre board and braking just after it, and we have to sacrifice entry for a maximum speed on the exit. So a lot of these tips I actually picked up from Tez. He was coaching me a little bit because I was struggling. And I managed to find a little bit of pace by race day, thank goodness. But we're going to be racing down the straight here, up towards the dock section. Really difficult to get right. We're looking for the 150 metre board, just braking just before it ends. We actually have run slightly deep, but we sort of managed to get it rotated in the deep part of the corner, and we're able to come back and sort of get a fast exit. Make sure we don't cut these painted curbs too much. They're not real curbs, it's just paint on the ground, so it doesn't actually affect the car. But if you cross the white line, you will get a penalty. Looking for the 50 metre board, braking just after it, just sort of as the dotted white line starts on the left track edge, and we get through there. Okay, we don't really find an apex, but we have to be careful not to graze or hit the barriers. This is the first sector split, an 103.2, very long first sector, but a 0.2 is not that bad at all. I think in the qualifying time trial you were getting like 0.1s or 0.0s or something. But through the back straight, which isn't really straight, up towards the hairpin, the braking point's kind of a little bit difficult to spot, but it's just after the 200, the shadow. There's a shadow just after the 200 metre board. That's what I was using exactly as a brake. Come for a later apex and start getting on the throttle early. It's hard to see my input there just because of the way the light was reflecting on the white paint behind behind the throttle trace there. But it's all good. We get through the hairpin okay, and then that sector split there is actually marginally purple. So we're on for a pretty good lap here as we head through the final sector, just on the 50 metre board. Slight brake and turn in third gear, and we're just balancing the throttle all the way through here, getting nice and close to the barriers, but make sure you don't hit them. Final turn just on the 50 metre board, turn in and brake and downshift to second for some rotation to get back on the power towards the exit. Don't graze that barrier on the exit, of course, and that is a lap of Tokyo Expressway South Inner Loop in the Ford GT40 up across the line. It's a 2:13.9. I was actually pretty happy with that lap, baby. I was pretty stoked that I was able to actually get 13 in the qualifying session. I would have been, it would have been quite a stretch for me to get a 13 based on the previous day's progress. But this is the following lap. We get a pretty good turn one, but we sort of make the same mistake and go a little bit deeper. We can't quite get it as turned as well as we could on the previous lap. And you can see the car's just beginning to slide. We're sliding all through these corners now, which is really no good for the time. Here's an old one. Absolutely hemorrhaging time. As you can see, we're 2.5 tenths down come that first sector split. We're going to quickly fast forward to the second sector split. Still 2.5 4.5 tenths down. If anything, slightly quicker through that second sector compared to the main lap, because that gap had actually closed down compared to the first sector. But then through these S's, not quite getting the rotation correct. I think we grazed a barrier a little bit earlier as well. The final turn, kind of comparable, maybe not quite as clean as the previous lap there, and ultimately it's going to be a 4.5 tenth difference, and that's going to qualify us in 7th position. Oh, that's okay. For feeling so far off the pace yesterday, that's alright. And as we meet ourselves on the grid, let's take the time to appreciate Distinct 1, 2, 3. New team for Amazing Hour, Tezza and Twitchy in Distinct. They've joined that in the last month or so, and in their first championship event, they've taken out the top 3 spots. So really, really good job to the Distinct boys there. Atom taking out the next position on the 4th slot of the grid in the Mazda RX 500, which was the alternative for this race here. But of course, this is open N300, so you can choose any car you like. But the Ford GT40 happens to be the meta car when we're around this realm of the car category in the Group N class in this game for some reason. I think it's an old race car from 1966, so I guess it sort of has some subtle race car characteristics, which makes it one of the faster N300 or N-class cars around this lower end of the Group N region. But anyway, what is this race here? So you did see in the brief intro, we've had the Gran Turismo 7 State of Play, so a nice half an hour long showcase by PlayStation, basically showing us the state of play for Gran Turismo 7. Lots of new cars and new features and new game modes, all revealed and confirmed for us in that presentation there, along with an additional confirmation of the release date of 4th of March 2022. So I'm recording this commentary on the 6th of February, so we've got less than a month to go until Gran Turismo 7. So yes, we've had a few different confirmations of the release date there, so I really don't think we're going to see a delay. But to commemorate the end of the life cycle of GT Sport, which has been everyone's pride and joy for 4.5 years or something, we're doing this championship here. The same format as the FIA Nations Cup of the past, but it's not endorsed by the FIA anymore, and it's also not called the Nations Cup, it's called the Road to GT7. However, there's one big key difference in this 4-round Road to GT7, and it's a little bit of a source of controversy amongst the community. Tuning. We did see in the previous Nations Cup and Manufacturers Series, they did sort of dabble in a little bit of tuning for some of the rounds. That was completely fine, because out of a 10-round championship, there was like 1 or 2 tuning rounds. So I think that's a pretty good compromise to have. The tuning offers up something a little bit different as well, so I'm not necessarily mad that they're starting to sprinkle a bit of tuning. But the controversial part is that for this Road to GT7, all 4 rounds, 100% of the races are tuning enabled, which means we can muck around with all the dampers and all the gearbox, the differential, all that stuff of the car. The balance of performance is on, so your power and weight reduction are all locked to the same value, but as for all the damper settings, etc., that's all adjustable, so it proves to be quite an annoying little point of contention for somebody like me who has zero interest in tuning up a car. I just want to jump in and play the game, which is the overwhelming consensus of a lot of players that play Gran Turismo Sport. In fact, it sort of forms part of the reason why a lot of us love Gran Turismo so much. But the fact that this is the Road to GT7 and all the rounds are tuning, it's sort of... There is reason to speculate that all of the championships in Gran Turismo 7 might be tuning enabled, which I think is a little bit of a silly choice. I think the best possible way they could try and implement some tuning in GT7 and keep everyone satisfied at the same time is really, really ensure that at least, or at most rather, there's a 50-50 split in the number of rounds in each championship for tuning off and tuning on. I think that's good. What would be better is that if in the Manufacturers and Nations Cup that was all tuning off, and then they had a separate tuning championship. But I don't know. I don't get paid by Polyphony to come up with these awesome ideas. So let's just see what GT7 has to offer. But before we get into the action of this race, I do want to extend a very big thank you to AMS Dude, aka Bobby, for the tune that I'm using on this Ford GT40. He actually published a video on his YouTube channel. You can check it out here, up in the card, if I can link it up there. If not, it will at least be down in the description below. If you'd like to check out his channel, it had a world record, the tune, at one stage, so it's a pretty good tune on the car, and that's basically my philosophy. Is if I can grab a really good tune, I'll probably do all the rounds, but if I don't get a tune, I'm probably not going to do it at all. That's basically my attitude towards tuning. But anyway, let's get into the race now. I was actually not considering doing this race at all. That's probably a little bit inaccurate. I was always going to do the race, but then I started to get into the practice, trying to get a card to work for me, and I found myself pretty far off the pace, and I really wasn't having the greatest time at all. It took me a while to get up the pace. The first day I was significantly off, but I sort of didn't think too much of it, and I was sort of tossing up between the Ford GT and the Mazda RX 500. We'll talk about the pros and cons of each car as we get into the pit strategy and pit phases of this race. Atom's driving the RX 500, but pretty much everyone else on the grid is in the Ford GT40. But yeah, I was in the Mazda for a bit, couldn't quite get up to pace. In the Ford, couldn't get up to the pace, so I was starting to think, is it really even worth it? You know, everyone's going to have different cars, different gearing, different tuning as well, so I can't even guarantee that I'm going to be able to stay ahead of people I qualify ahead of. So I was basically just like, I don't know if I can be bothered. But then the guy in third, Distinct Tezar, as we break into the docks, realised we're going to go into the back of Brocky and have to use that barrier to slow down. Call me dirty, I say call me avoiding an incident. Just trying not to smash into the back of Brocky and ruin his race. But I think Noodles also gets a penalty coming through here as well. He does, half a second. But yeah, Distinct Tez, I would say I'm pretty good mates with Tez, and he was actually giving me some coaching tips and helped me find some pace, the absolute legend. So this was the day before the round. He was sort of critiquing some time trial laps I was doing, telling me what I needed to do and what I was doing wrong, and then, you know, I sort of took on board what he was able to tell me, got myself into the top 10 for Oceania for time trial, so I was quite happy with that. And then the following day when I jumped on for the race, I was I'd found some pace overnight, just, you know, having a little bit of a sleep on it, and I was able to improve my pace come race day, thank goodness. But coming into the hairpin now, we're on lap 3. Still nothing too much to report of. Atom's actually lost the slipstream of the Distinct guys up ahead, so those three have driven off. Obviously, they're all on the same team, so they're going to be helping out each other, making sure all three of them are in slipstream and making sure that nobody else can actually get into the fray by making sure they give their teammate the slipstream if somebody from a different team or somebody on no team, basically somebody just not on Distinct, tries to go for a move such that they cannot actually get past. And Atom's in the Mazda. So I guess we can talk about the pros and cons of the GT40 versus the Mazda RX Vision. We'll talk more about the pit strategies in a minute, but all we need to know for now is that fuel is an issue, and the Ford GT40 loves a drink or two. It loves a good drink of the old gasoline that's available in the pit lane. So you don't quite get to the end on a tank of fuel in the Ford, and you do have to make a pit stop. There's a mandatory stop anyway, so all cars have to stop, but oh dear, we've made a huge error there by hitting the barrier on the exit of turn 1. Goat actually gives me a little bit of a bump draft to help me get back up to speed, but I don't think it's quite going to be enough as we get out of the slipstream range, unfortunately. But we're going to see if we can gain it back under braking into the dock section. So as you come up to our braking point of about halfway between the 200 and the 150 meter board in the race, Noodles is going to come up to serve that penalty. We get that really good apex at turn 2, a little bit wide for turn 3, and then the last two corners, turn 4 and turn 5, is this left-hander. We're back in the slipstream, and this is the one and only penalty gate on the track coming into turn 6. It's really actually not a bad penalty gate in the grand scheme of the game, because look at that, I've got no chance to actually get past Noodles. The Ford GT40 doesn't have the best brakes either, so if you're only braking for half a second, you're actually not losing that much speed. But anyway, the Mazda is a good choice because it's a lot better on fuel than this Ford, which means that it has to stop and refuel for less time in the pits. Even though it may not be as great through the corners, it's better in a straight line than the Ford as well. So if you can find yourself ahead and just hold up a GT40 in the corners while you're driving the Mazda, you're also got a fuel advantage. You should be able to come out of the pit lane, come out of the pit phase ahead of them. As we come into here, Goat sends it up the inside, knocks Noodles, who knocks into Atom, and they both ghost out. I'm able to get both their positions, but Goat just sort of keeps that position there. He actually has gained 3 spots out of just diving into the hairpin. Looks like he just broke too late, or sort of tried to go for a move on me a little bit late and just misjudged and crashed into 2 people, and then continues on driving up the road. So that was a little bit how you're going, but I think Goat is a very quick driver. He just, makes brash decisions sometimes, and just a little bit of sloppy driving on that particular occasion there. But he gets a poor exit out of the final turn. He's gone to the inside. He does open up the inside there, but I decide to go for the bump draft instead, because I know coming up to turn 1, you definitely don't want to run side by side through there. And what that's actually done is really hamper Atom, actually, because he needs to make sure he keeps track position as much as possible, because if the Fords sort of get away from him out of the gap in which he closed down by having the fuel advantage, that's kind of detrimental for Atom, and he really just needs to be making the most of his car, making the most of his pace, and he's got much better straight line speed. He comes for a side-by-side move down the inside of the Docklands, was side-by-side with one of our best mates in the game. He sends it down the inside in that Mazda RX 500, get it stopped on the apex. A nice little love tap by me as we head through there. He's able to recover and get his sort of funny, strange looking Mazda up into 6th position. I actually quite like the car, to be honest. Powered by rotary, it gives me DeLorean vibes as well. I think I'm just a fan of the Mazda, and I actually tried to make the Mazda work before I got the Ford to work, because I was told about the fuel adventures, like, maybe I could go for the alternative and sort of gain positions on the fuel. And Atom committed, and he's actually managed to do it. He's quite well on the pace, and he's got a fuel advantage, so Atom's got a good amount of strategic tools in his arsenal for this race here. He's going to just completely just go for the move on Goat as well. He's not mucking around. He knows what he needs to do, and Goat actually slides a little bit wide, just taken aback by the move there. I'm flashing my headlights at this particular stage to make sure Goat doesn't hamper me. A little bit of side-to-side contact coming into the hairpin. We get it stopped, but I think Goat has just got a slight amount of overlap there. I definitely would have just hung in behind me if it was me behind, because what that's done is just slowed us both down, and there's no way you're going to be getting a move at the hairpin if you've only got a 5mm overlap. But anyway, it's all good. We still got the slipstream of Atom, which will be really good for our fuel. You might have noticed throughout this race I've been shifting at about 75-80%. That's to try and just limit the amount of fuel I'm trying to use. So I am using quite a lot of fuel at the end of the straights, but because I was kind of not that comfortable in the car, I didn't want to start messing around with the fuel maps too much, so I just sort of bit the bullet, and I was like, I am going to use a lot of fuel at the end of the straights, because I max out in my top gear, so the revs are really, really high, just using a load of fuel. But yeah, because I'd only just sort of got on the pace, I didn't want to mess. I just wanted to leave well alone. I was like, I'm kind of on the pace. Let's not muck around too much with stuff and just make sure we keep the car off the barriers. Atom gets a poor turn 1, but much better straight line speed in that Mazda. He just pulls in ahead, and I'm able to grab some slipstream benefits as Atom drives up the road. Better straight line speed, so I think the slipstream off the back of Atom is better than being behind another GT40 there, because I'm not going to catch up to the back of him. And this is what Atom needs to do. Look at that. Not able to get past coming into one of the heavy braking zones there, so this is why the Mazda's actually not a bad choice. He keeps it nice and square through these corners here, just nipping the apexes beautifully, and this is coming up to lap 6. I think we're going to see some pit stops by lap 6. I can make it till lap 7 in the Ford, but a lot of people were choosing lap 6. Atom can make it to lap 8 or lap 9 even on the first tank of fuel there, so that's why he's able to gain so much, because he can go long and then fill up less, because the car's obviously using less fuel. Look at that, 3/10 up on my current fastest lap is at 15.3. In a practice race, I was able to get a couple of 14s in the race, but just because I've been stuck around with other drivers here. I'm not quite able to get the pace I was on my own, but it's all good. We're going to come up to the hairpin now. I've got 1.3 laps remaining, so I'm going to go around for one more time there. I just nipped the barrier on the exit of turn 10 as well. So Goat had a little bit of an opportunity to send it up the inside. I receive a bump from behind as well, and Atom just comes back for his apex. It's a little bit of awkward contact there. I apologise for it again in his stream chat and in the lobby afterwards, and with a flash of the hazards, but Atom said he didn't really have the foresight that I may have been taking a different line on the entry there, but overall he didn't blame me, so it's all good, thank goodness. I do not want to make enemies out of Atom. He's done a lot for me in my channel. But anyway, around for one more time. I'm just going to grab the slipstream of Atom, which is once again quite useful for me. Noodles is just recovering from that incident earlier in the race when Goat set it down the inside of the hairpin. Noodles kind of got absolutely shafted by that particular maneuver, and he's now caught back up to the back of me. He's 2.5 tenths behind me. He's going to have some slipstream from me, so he may be able to save some fuel, and that's something I have to watch out for. He's sort of dropped back a little bit, so he may have saw that as an opportunity to kind of go, oh, maybe I can save a bit of extra fuel or maybe jump this Smokescreen guy. And, well, we're about to see exactly how much fuel he has as we head up to the pit entry, which is, funnily enough, halfway through the lap on the outside of the top hairpin at turn 11. Coming into the dock section, Noodles catches up a little bit of ground under braking, but nothing too much to worry about at this stage. You have to be really careful with the throttle heading through here, because this tune is actually running maximum ride height, funnily enough. You'd think the lowest ride height, or, you know, maximize how low you can run the car, would be better for a race tune, because you lower the centre of gravity, but turns out not to be the case in the Ford GT40 as Atom runs wide through turn 6. I know he's going to get the overlap done here, but I didn't want to run into the back of him and lose my speed as well, so I've just gone for a little bit of overlap there, just waited for Atom to start to pull ahead of me, and I've gone back behind for the slipstream, so just limiting how much time I actually lose from Atom's little mistake ahead of me. But this is lap 7. I've run out of fuel, or I've not run dry, but I don't have enough to do one more lap. Whack on the left indicator to let everyone know I'm going into the pit lane here. So this corner now becomes a 90-degree right-hander instead of a 180-degree hairpin. Atom's a little bit wide there. I receive a bump from behind, which pushes me into Atom, and he doesn't take the pit entry there. And this is what we do in the pits. Oh, a bit awkward there. A little bit awkward. Because I thought Atom was going to go into the pits, and that's why he went wide, so I was like, oh, you know, I'll just sort of follow him, and then I received a bump from behind, which pushed me into Atom, and he decided to continue on. He, of course, can afford to do that. Noodles is going to jump me here. Noodles had a little bit more fuel than me, and look, he's done exactly that. He's jumped me there, so as we accelerate out of the pits, let's have a look. We're not in the slipstream of Noodles, so that's not good there. But yeah, well, hopefully that hasn't screwed Atom up too much. I just received a bump from behind. There wasn't too much I could do. But yeah, this is the situation now. We're out of the slipstream of Noodles. It would have been quite useful if we could just grab the slipstream. Perhaps I should have risked the fuel a little bit more and put a couple of % less fuel in than I did. But again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. I've got no way of knowing that I needed to just put a couple of % less fuel in to keep in the slipstream of Noodles. But what we have to worry about now is Goat behind. He's back within the slipstream, so I think I must have jumped him in the pit phases, because he's now behind me again. Not sure whether he's had another incident or just had to refuel a little bit extra. But either way, I've jumped him at some stage, and he's now going to have my slipstream. So we put enough fuel in. That you saw how much fuel I had to put in. I had to put an absolute loads of fuel in to try and get to the end. And the Mazda only has to fill up, I think, less than 20% fuel. I have to put in almost 50%. So yeah, definitely a big advantage in the Mazda, and that's why Atom chose it. That's why I wanted to try and choose it too, but yeah, couldn't quite make it work for me. But as we head through here, my main objective now is to actually try to get back within the slipstream of Noodles, but make sure I don't use too much fuel, rather. In the process, I have to make sure I don't use more fuel than I was in the earlier laps of the race, because when you refuel in your pit stop, the little diamond along the fuel bar along the bottom in the pit stop shows how much fuel you need to get to the end of the race based on your current rate of fuel use. So if you're fuel saving for your first stint, that diamond is going to show how much fuel you need to get to the end while using the same amount of fuel as you were in the opening of the race. And I only refueled to the diamond, so I have to make sure I'm still short shifting, but I also want to make sure to avoid some errors. Look at this, Atom and John in the pits with 4 and 2% fuel respectively. This will be interesting as we head through the pit exit, which is going to be on the exit of the hairpin. Really short pit lane here. Look, not much length there, and as we head out of the pits, Atom's come out up ahead, and there's John. He's out behind. He's had to put more fuel in than Atom has needed to, and Atom has come out ahead, and we once again find ourselves in 7th position, so someone's GOAT is still behind us. I think everyone who started ahead of me is still ahead of me, and Brocky's doing very well as well. Not a name we see in FIA too often, but nevertheless, he's doing quite well. But as we head through the final S's section now, we've only got 2 laps to go to try and consolidate this 7th position there on the exit of the final turn there. A little bit of oversteer. We don't quite graze the barrier, but GOAT's got a good run there. I flashed the hazards just to try and say, maybe bump draft me, bro. Why are you going for a move there? That was just my reaction at the time. I thought, oh, why are you overlapping into turn 1? But get back over here. But of course, he's allowed to do that. He's absolutely allowed to do it. I just found it a frustrating decision, but it's all good. So he goes up the inside. At turn 1, I actually let off the throttle and just let him go through because I didn't want to go side by side through turn 1 and lose too much speed. I would definitely lose less time by just letting him through going into turn 1 than I would by going side by side and trying to keep the position into turn 1. So that's a position loss. That's not good. GOAT started behind me, and he's now got an on-track overtake and is now ahead of me, coming on to about halfway through the penultimate lap of the race. So now my attention is shifted to trying to get my qualifying position back. That's my only goal at this stage. I have to make sure to still not use too much fuel. Look, I've only got 1 lap to do, or 1.5 laps to go, and I've got 25% of fuel. It's just, this car is so thirsty. Imagine using a quarter of a tank in approximately 10 kilometers. That's a lot. Obviously a 6.5 kilometer track is this Tokyo Expressway layout. We've got the slipstream of GOAT here. My thoughts at the time were I want to make sure I get past GOAT such that I don't give him an opportunity to re-overtake me. So I'm catching under the slipstream here, and I perhaps could have gone for the move here by braking as late as possible heading up the inside, but I didn't go for the move there because I thought, oh, he could just re-overtake me coming into the docks or re-overtake me coming into the hairpin on the last lap. So I didn't go for the move, just checking the fuel to make sure we have enough. 1.3 heading up into the 3rd sector. It's just about enough to get to the end. Couple of extra short shifts, a little bit of a shorter shift than normal for that particular gear change, because I don't want to be right up GOAT's trumpet. I want to be a little bit behind him to make sure I get a good run up in the slipstream, to make sure I'm able to actually get a complete overtake done and not just an overlap that he's able to defend from. But as we head through the last turn there, GOAT's got a really good S's section there. To be completely fair to him, he's got a better exit out of the final turn. We've still got the slipstream, so we can recover half a second ahead. I've got half a second worth of gap to try and close down in this last lap, and the first place I have to do it is the dock section, so turn 2. Coming into turn 1, now GOAT's run a little bit wide, and so have I. I'm just sliding on the apex. I grazed the barrier on the exit. Damn it. And I'm really not happy with that one. So I just have to stay in the slipstream of GOAT. That gap's going to open up. I'm going to have an absolutely astronomically excellent dock section and following turn 6 to make sure I'm close enough to get a move done at the hairpin, because that's the last opportunity on this layout of this track. I'll probably run a little bit deep into the dock section there, but let's see if we can straighten up and commit to the power on the exit, just sliding through turn 4. Let's get turn 5 right with no penalties. Look at that gap up to GOAT. He's got a much better docks than I have, and it's looked like he's going to break the slipstream at this particular spot. We're going to have an awesome turn 6, because this is our last opportunity. As close to the apex as I possibly can get on the exit. It's only going to be 8 tenths. GOAT's broken the toe. There's nothing I can do about that. He's broken the toe, and I'm not going to be able to get anywhere near close enough to try and get a move done. The last thing I can hope for from GOAT is quite a large error. He's going to have to smack the barrier incomprehensibly hard for me to actually gain this 7th position back. Got to keep an eye on the fuel, because that's 0.4 coming into the hairpin. Maybe a little bit short of fuel compared to what I would like to be, but I think it's just about okay. If I'm on the pit exit line by about 0.3 laps remaining, I should be okay. As we exit the hairpin for the last time, it's just dipped down to 0.3, 4% of fuel remaining for one last travel through the third sector. I couldn't quite think of the right word there. I ended up settling with travel. But I've obviously had a pretty poor final lap there, and Meta 7's actually taken advantage of that. He's sort of been a little bit nowhere in this race, but towards the end stages, he's definitely sort of in the mirrors, ready to pick up the pieces if I make an incomprehensible mistake that I really wanted Goat to make at this stage. But we get through the final sector cleanly. Meta 7's not in the slipstream. It's gonna be an 8th position. But have a look. 1, 2, 3, Distinct Andrew, Twitchy Tez. Well done to the Distinct boys as usual. It's just Goat. I wanted to beat Goat, but he got past. So, it's all good. Congratulations to the Distinct boys. What a debut. Brocky did well as well, and Atom in the second choice, the alternative. Nice. Oh, that'll do. That'll do. That will do. 233 points for my efforts there. I'm not that unhappy with that, to be honest. For how far off the pace I felt in the days leading up to it. The fact I was able to then get a 13 in the qualifying session without slipstream, I probably could have got a much better qualifying time if I had some slipstream, but again, it was just down to confidence in the car, and I didn't have it. So I managed to actually get 233. Towards the end of the previous exhibition series, I was getting sort of 250s, 260s, 270s, and I think the 250 could be my new benchmark. I remember when it was 200 and then 220, and now I think it's 250, but I think in the grand scheme of everything, this particular round, 233, I think was good enough for me to just go, you know what, I'm finished with this Ford GT40. It's been a tumultuous week trying to get up to the pace, and once again, thanks to Tez for showing me, for telling me some tips and sort of showing me how to find some pace, and big thanks to Dude for coming up with the tune for the car that propelled me to my 8th spot. Like I said in the quick little debrief in the live radio, I was kind of happy with that. The only exception being that I lost the position to Goat. If I had finished in 7th, which is where I qualified, I think I probably would have been perfectly happy with that, and I'm pretty sure that position would have been for 247 points. So my only reservation was that lost position there, because I definitely could have kept that position if I just made less mistakes. So again, it's just down to practice, or rather being out of it. But big congratulations to Goat. He had that little bit of sloppy incident at the hairpin, but other than that, he kind of raced fine. You know, he didn't really do anything to be, so I can't really complain. But yeah, overall, Goat, good race, mate. And Atom done well in the alternative choice, and of course, Distinct 1, 2, 3 doesn't get any better than that in terms of debuting for a new team. But that's going to be the end of the first round of the road to GT7. Keep an eye out for the following rounds, since the next one is next week. It'll be interesting to see how the rest of this season goes with all the tuning we need to do. But as for this video, that's going to finish it up today, so do hit the like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos and streams from me. Do leave a comment as well. Questions, comments, and constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.